that we listen to what you all want and what you all feel you need. We try to incorporate that as much as we possibly can within the plans and the concepts and the final project as it moves forward. So tonight is about showing you all how that feedback that has been given to us is being put into action. You'll see how the ideas that you have come up with are helping to guide our design concepts for the entrance, the lake, the trails, and the park amenities. And this, of course, is not a one-time conversation. This conversation will continue throughout this process. It's an ongoing partnership between and the community, especially those who love to come to Ascarate the Park. And we are committed to continuing to be transparent, to be collaborative, and making sure that every investment that we make reflects the residents and what they truly want and what they need. So I'm going to go ahead and toss it back to Lydia Arias, who's the project manager for this project, and she's going to go over some of those details. Thank you very much again for being here. I look forward to hearing more of your feedback.
Thank you, Commissioner. And as you mentioned, we did have a survey, and the team will talk about a little bit more of the survey, but we do want to thank all of the participation because we've had 1,193 people respond to the survey. So it's definitely an important thing for us. And before we start the presentation, I wanted to acknowledge some of the other county members that are here. They behind us, and the team, we have great leadership, so I'd like to welcome Melissa Carrillo. She's our operations deputy, our public works deputy, Norma Palacios, our parks director, Tim Bolton. That's all we have for leadership. Thank you for being here with us. And then next, I'd like to talk about the agenda. This is what you should expect to see tonight. Again, the introductions. We talked about the bond. You'll see a lot of how we incorporated the visions that were voted for, and the team again will talk about that a little bit more. The proposed lake improvements, how we're implementing all of the concepts into our bond improvements, and of course the overall concept plan for Ascarate. And this is a little bit more of a breakdown of what all these projects are. The commissioner talked about the bonds in general for parks, but this is specifically for Ascarate. We have a $45.4 million investment. And I want to clarify that this is a different budget from the park headquarters. So I know it's also at Ascarate, but that project is separate from this one. So next, I want to introduce our Exego team. They've been great in helping us create all these visions. We have Exego, who is the lead designer. We also have Surroundings, our landscape architect, and Biohabitat with us today. So they will all be presenting all these concepts, and after the presentation, we will be providing a copy of this presentation for everybody to look over. So don't worry about taking pictures. We will give you a copy of the presentation, and I'll turn it over. Thank you, Lydia. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, great. Well, I'm Paulina Lagos. I am the project manager of this design team in general, but specifically I'm an architect from Exego Architecture. We are a local architecture firm, and we are joined by some incredible consultants here who are experts in the lake and the landscape, right, which are two incredibly important components of this park. Just as a reminder, we've had our first community meeting, and we took incredible feedback from the community through our incredible voting results, and have used them as a guide in this design process. We will have one more community meeting after this meeting. We're going to take all the feedback that we get from you today and incorporate that into our concepts. And we are going to have
another round of voting, so we'll talk to you a little bit more about that as we go through this process. But first we want to start with our project approach, which I think is really important to contextualize everything that we're doing. We have an incredible investment by the county, by this community to improve this park, and so we want to be incredibly responsible with it. And for that reason, we think it's important that our project approach is holistic. And we don't want to approach all of these separate bond projects as a piecemeal kind of exercise, but rather a holistic approach that looks at the park as an interconnected system rather than a series of isolated projects. So that is really important to the county, and it's really important to us as a design team. So this process was guided by the 2021 master plan, but also from input from the community. And I hope you had a chance to see the community results that are displayed there from our first community meeting. And then taking this holistic approach is important for really three major reasons, and probably others. But it establishes a clear and unified vision for the park's future, grounded in community input and priorities, as well as the county's long-term goals. We want to allow infrastructure such as circulation, utilities, drainage, and landscape systems to be planned strategically so that improvements support future projects, right? We know that we have what is a lot of money, right? But this is a huge park, and so we have to be really strategic in how we use that money for the projects that we have to implement. And then it also ensures that potential future bond funding can be implemented as part of a coordinated plan, rather than, as I said, applied piecemeal, so that each investment that this community makes builds on the previous investment, right, for a stronger and more cohesive park over time, right? I was talking to Tom about how much this park has changed since he was a little kid, right? And so we really want to think about the park in those terms. It's something that can evolve and change over time, and that all of these investments will support each other. Okay, so we got incredible feedback, and some of those things were, as you can see in the boards, you know, an emphasis on nature play. We want an emphasis on an arrival experience with a pedestrian gateway. We want to have more lakefront activities. Fishing is a huge part of this park, as we all know, and we hear you. Native plants, picnic groves, lighting, these are really important things that we're going to be looking at as well. And so this is not an exhaustive list, but some of the kind of major themes that came out of the community voting. Okay, and so as a result, our team has come up with these three kind of guiding principles to guide the vision of the park. And so something that's really important to us, and hopefully to you as well, is this idea of healing and thinking about the ecological restoration of the lake, the wetlands, improving water quality, so that we can have a better fishing experience, right? So that the fish in the lake can thrive and hopefully breed. Big emphasis on nature, right? We want to really think about the wildlife that come here, as well as the people who come here, right? Who, you know, this park is a great respite from city life, right, for most of us. And so we want to have a great emphasis on shade, landscape, improving the lake edge to make it natural, while at the same time thinking about sustainability, social well-being, energy conservation, water conservation are incredible parts of this. And then movement, and thinking about this place as more pedestrian oriented, right? So thinking about how we can make the park more accessible, safer, improve lighting, adding these multimodal trails for jogging, walking, cycling, skating, and then improving the vehicular circulation of the park so that there is a clearer way to move through the park, but also to give a priority to the, you know, the kids and the people that are on these multimodal trails so that they can safely access the park. And then, of course, community is an incredible part of this. Recreation, right? We want to have a diverse range of activities for families and kids. I won't go through all of them, but we want to think about camping, passive gathering, nature play, water play, community gardens, sports courts, and then strategic interventions on the site where we respect the things and the amenities that we already love, like the fields, the aquatic center, the golf course, and the lake ecology that is already thriving, as well as making this an incredible landmark for El Paso. We want to introduce amazing amenities like a new festival area, potentially a visitor center, and improve the wayfinding here, which we think is really important. And this is just a small disclaimer. Because these are just ideas that were generated by all of the amazing impact and information that we got from you, we're going to be showing a lot of renderings and imagery. They are by no means final. They are just a means to get you to kind of visualize some of these things so that it can help inform you and your decision-making process so that you can better give us feedback. So nothing is final. These are all incredible ideas, and we're here to really listen to you and to get the feedback from you. Okay, so we're going to start with Jessica from Biohabitats, who's going to talk about the lake.
Hello, I'm Jessica. It's a pleasure to be here. And I will just start by saying that Biohabitats, we spent a lot of time working on lakes. We spent a lot of time designing wetlands. I'm a biologist, and on my team are the water quality engineers and the structural engineers who are behind this. So there might be some questions that are technical in nature that are really engineering questions, but I'm going to do the best I can as the biologist who's really thinking about how to make this lake a better place for fish and how to make the fishing experiences better. So several of you, many of you, and much of the community has spent a fair amount of time helping us understand what's wrong and what can be seen as a challenge, and what's great about what's out there in the Ascarate Lake right now. So a couple of the things that we've talked about quite a bit is that there is some deferred maintenance on the infrastructure around the lake, the wells and pumps. We've got some issues around the edges of the walls where you're seeing erosion and undercutting, and this is causing problems for the lake, for the water quality. And then overall, we have a system that has very low dissolved oxygen, very high temperatures, sedimentation, and some nutrient accretion. So part of what we're doing in this phase is to get a much better handle on what exactly is the root cause of some of these issues. So we have some tests that are ongoing. I spoke to some of you and texted with some of you about the water quality testing that we don't have back yet. We have only the preliminary. And we're also looking at doing some borings, which is looking at a lake bottom, the thickness of the sediment on top of the liner and how the liner is. And we're also installing and looking through flow meters for the wells, so we'll have a better understanding of how much water is coming in and out. So those are things that are ongoing and part of this phase. But what we really want to think about is where are we able to move forward and improve the quality of the lake and improve the water quality of the lake. So on the next slide, we've got ideas, and we've got these, the main driver of this, and these will be refined, is to add wetlands and wetland surface area into some of these areas, which is the key to improving water quality. So you can't reduce temperatures and you can't increase dissolved oxygen unless you're putting an enormous investment in gray infrastructure without having increased wetlands. So what we've done here is add these diversions around the edges, which are going to be putting water in contact with plants and contact with wetland soils, improving the aeration, the water dissolved oxygen that's coming from the bubblers in the bottom, addressing the issues with the wells, thinking carefully about moving the water around the lake in a structured way. So the circulation is one of the most important things that we're going to be doing to use this. The other, there's also an image here of thinking about where the fish want to be and what a fish wants out of the lake. And it doesn't want a homogeneous bathtub bottom. Fish are really responsive to habitat structures. You see people throwing Christmas trees and natural habitat stuff out there all the time. You can also be more intentional and attracting fish and fish groups to different areas of the lake, and so using habitat structures to improve the quality of that habitat for fish is another important part. So before we go on to the next slide, I'll just say that as Paulina was describing, we've listened to a lot of conversation, we've had a lot of questions about what are the values and the priorities around the lake and the duck pond. And we know that both of them need attention and rehabilitation to move into the future. So repairing and maintaining and putting in a continued investment in these water bodies is a really important facet of however this moves forward. We're also thinking carefully about how much open water there is and how much water we're losing to evaporation. So right now, every year, 85 million gallons of water is evaporating out of Ascarate Lake, the big one. And 9 million gallons is evaporating out of the duck pond. So on the next slide, we're going to propose to you that the duck pond is not actually driving some of the key values that people have for this area, and we want to propose its removal. So later in the presentation, or coming right up now, we're going to talk about some of the ideas that we would have for moving it, but we want to discuss this in particular, because this is going to improve the water conservation, the repair and maintenance budget, and the ability to keep healthy habitat, lower water temperatures, higher dissolved oxygen by reducing the footprint of the area that we're trying to maintain, especially the very shallow area of the duck. It's now 4.8 acres, so about 5 acres is what we're proposing. So we look forward to talking more about the pros and cons of that idea. But to close out this lake section, we'll just move on to one of the big structural changes that we want to be making is to the edge and how people are interacting with the edge of the water. So instead of an abrupt wall that falls down towards the water, we want to be softening that edge and bringing the water in contact with more wetland plants, and also making it a better place to walk around and to interact with the water and go down to the edge. Okay, with that, I'll hand it over to Kenneth to walk through the rest of the park, and I look forward to talking to you after.
Hi, I'm Kenneth Francis. I'm the founding principal of Surroundings. We're a landscape architecture practice based in Santa Fe. We've been working in El Paso since 2006. We love your town, and I need to get a place down here. So I'm going to start off with just talking a little bit about some of the park concepts. A lot of the work that we've been doing is a direct reflection, at least we hope it is, a direct reflection of your voices, your input that you've given us. I'm going to move this out so I'm not trying to punch. And one of the things that we have talked extensively about is really the clearing of how this park is used. And we want the pond itself to really reflect a more passive quality landscape. Right now you've got roads up against it, you've got a lot of infrastructure, and it's not very naturalized, we can probably all agree on, right? And so we want to try to start to create that as part of the impact that Jessica and her team is talking about over there, to really naturalize both the lake and then the surrounding landscape. And then on the perimeter, we have this much more active zone, and where we can really load up some really interesting program for this park. You've got so much space that we can really start to work with. And you already have ball fields in there. And so we're trying to kind of take cues from the things that are already in those zones and start to develop those. So I'm going to go through some diagrams very quickly about the park. This one is about the roads and parking. Right now, there's 1,500 parking spaces. We're giving 1,500 parking spaces back into the new plan, so we're not losing parking. The one thing that we're doing is we're proposing that the middle road that's right along the lake goes away, and that all of the circulation, I would love to stand in front of the slides. Can I pull this? Yeah. Okay, is that it? Okay, all right. I'm just more kind of touchy-feely. So what are we doing? We're pulling the road all the way to the perimeter. That existing road, we're reusing it. We're not wiping out all the parts. We really want, one, spend the dollars wisely, but really use a lot of the existing infrastructure. So the idea is to change some of the routing, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this when we zoom in and talk about the entrance approach. But pull that traffic all the way to the perimeter, and then have several legs that come in, both for drop-off, for ADA accessibility, to get people that are less able-bodied closer to the lake. But for the most part, we really want this to be a very pedestrian-focused center, right? So we don't want all these roads and that crazy roundabout that you have, like coming in here and you're like, where do I go? Not where we want to be. Next slide. So the other is pedestrian network existing, pedestrian network proposed. This pedestrian network right now is so car dominant, it does not have a continuous sidewalk system except around the lake, which we're going to improve. And so as a part of the bond, right, this is part of the bond language, we're connecting off of the Playa Trail. It's going to tie into an improved, wider multimodal trail that we're looking to make 14 feet, I think, is what we're trying to aim for. So you really can have true separated multimodal circulation on this route. It also happens to be exactly 2.5 kilometers. So for you 5Kers, you get to go around the lake twice and you get to run it. And then there's a whole new pedestrian network that will develop through all the interventions that we're doing. And then we also still have this ability to use the road for running events and other things like that, which have been used in the past. Next one. And if I miss something, you call me out. The other is about the event space. The current event space is taking about 21 acres, and the new event space, which really cleans up and defines it as a real true place, is about 23 acres. You're going to see in subsequent slides this development of this large event lawn that can hold about 20 to 25,000 people for an event. So it is a substantial attractor, so you can pull great concerts, events, fairs, etc., that can use this large open space. And then in the comparison of open space and lawns, you're going to see again that we're starting to really infuse. Right now, this is like a perimeter edge that doesn't really have much program to it, but we're going to really infuse all of this to really aggregate more green space, open space around these areas. We're also improving the Fisherman's Island as well. And we're going to talk more about these in our zoom-in plans that we have. So this idea about all of the different programming we can bring to the park, right? This is one of the things that is what can become really rich. Now, again, our disclaimer is we can't bring it all at once based on the fundings that we do have from the county, but it's a very generous bond that the county has developed, and we feel like we can do a lot of this. But you can see in the existing side, our list, our legend, shows you some of the existing facilities. Now, we are proposing even more facilities, expanding pickleball, expanding tennis courts, expanding basketball, I think stays the same. But then adding more soccer fields, adding more potential future basketball, that's right, there is some down here. Future skate park and pump track for other users. And so these are some of the things that we are starting to overlay into the duck pond area so that we can actually get a lot of different diverse users, not just those that are going to the duck pond. So we want to try to expand how many people and the types of people that can use this park. So this is just looking at some of the bond implementation. So looking at what the funding mechanisms are and how they're going to be distributed across the park. And you'll see that pretty much wherever there's color is where we are moving forward with the design work, right? So that we know that these fields stay. We know that this comes later. There's several things in here that might come later based on the funding. Did you want to add something?
So just to emphasize the different bond funding mechanisms, this is also in the room. We'll turn it over so you can see it. But you'll see each of the distinct bond issuances numbered, A1, A2, A3, A4, A5, right? As well as the lake, which is not an official bond, but it's a attachment. And so they are color coded, so you will be able to see that each of the bond issuances correlates to specific projects, right? And the areas that are kind of grayed out are either what's already here, like the baseball fields, etc., or space for future projects that could be potentially funded in future bonds. But that's also one of the things that we'll be giving you a voice on, and you'll be able to vote on that after this presentation to tell us if that's something that's important and meaningful to you.
Okay, and so these are just some of the present imagery and examples. We're going to again be zooming in on some of these components of the design in these enlargement plans that are forthcoming, which are forthcoming right now. Okay, so this is what I think is really a really interesting shift in the entrance sequence. Right now, the road comes in through, and there's the little ticket counter, and then you go into this well, we're saying, let's take that away. And the real entrance into the park is going to be moving this way and around that perimeter loop road, right? And these guys are going to the golf course, right? So there's still a one-way lane that will take them to the golf course. But it just separates that traffic. The other is that little roundabout goes over here, goes away, and all those roads around the memorial are gone. It all becomes naturalized around it. There is a dedicated parking area that people can use when they come to visit the memorial. And it just puts it in a nicer place, right? Right now it's just surrounded by roads, and I think you could really clean it up. So the memorial stays where it is, but we're now changing everything around it to really accommodate. This is the trail from the Playa Green. It comes around and starts to loop in and tie into the lake, right? And the other thing that we thought could be really interesting, this is a really large park. It's going to take decades for the tree plantings and the tree succession to really get filled into this park. And so why not have an actual demonstration nursery that's actually raising trees for this park that you see when you come in, right? You drive in and it's just beautiful rows of small trees that are the little babies that are going to get put into the park that are going to become these big, beautiful, shade-producing creatures someday, right? So, and it's tied to the community garden, right? The community garden is right across the street, so we thought that was very symbiotic to have that kind of activity, the equipment, et cetera, that could handle taking that on. So it could be something really beautiful. Exigo, do you want to talk about the entrance concepts?
Another just a note about the rerouted entrance is to help improve queuing, right? During large events, so we have the ability to queue a lot more vehicles. And I think we have four lanes? It's 4 lanes, so that we can kind of improve that circulation on big events, so that we have better entrances and a better egress. And then
3 lanes going in, 1 lane going out, when it flips, you can do 3 lanes going out, 1 lane
3 lanes in, 3 lanes out, and then swap. Okay, so that's a big part of rerouting that. And then we would love to hopefully design a wonderful new entryway concept. And we have 2 concepts that you can vote on. Nothing is final, as I said. They're just ideas to get kind of a sense of what you like, what you don't like. One is a little bit more angular and a reflection of our mountain range, and one is a little bit more curvilinear and swoopier, a little bit softer, right? So we'll see those boards and we'll be able to comment on what you like.
Is there anything else I missed, Katie? No? Good. Okay, next. Okay. Now we can do a duet. I got you, babe. Okay, so here now we're here, right? So we were up there, and we're coming down the road, and we're coming to the Great Lawn. And new improved parking, really nice, large parking lot behind this that can feed people into these events. Now, we haven't talked about all the logistics yet, but we've been discussing this so that we're not going for the idea of a ticket booth because it just creates too much traffic. And so better to have people buy their tickets online, they go and park, and then they go to a fenced off area. So this would probably have some sort of temporary fencing during events with control points to let people in, just to know that. A big event stage facing away from the neighborhoods so that the noise is carrying out and across the lake, not back towards the neighborhoods, because we've heard that is an issue in the past. The other is getting some bathroom facilities that are nearby, as well as shade structures. And we do want to create like a future food truck court that people could, different vendors could come in for these events, park, and have like a really awesome lineup of all sorts of food for these festivals. Or it's just a weekend and you get 5 or 10 of them, right? So those are in there. We also are showing the idea of a future splash pad that kids love and are really remarkable things to be in the desert and be able to get wet and enjoy those kinds of activities. And then picnic areas that start to line up. Remember that diagram? Passive, active, right? So all the active things are going on here. 2 dog parks, 1 for small dogs, 1 for large dogs. So those are split so they don't hate on each other. And then you want to talk about some of the ideas for the pavilions? It's on.
So just to note, because I don't think we said it, so you saw the bond map showing all the different bond funding. When you see these blow-ups, these grayed out areas are future, and these kind of more filled in vibrant colors are what we plan to hopefully build in this bond. Okay, just so you understand the difference. And then here are just 2 proposals as well for an event stage, which you will also be given the opportunity to vote on. This again reflecting that more mountainous kind of feel versus something that's a little bit more spooky or organic. So we'd love to hear your feedback on any of that. And then we will also be having an opportunity for you to just give open comments.
The other thing about the Great Lawn is that it's a big, large, passive green, right? Grass. So it can be used for other events or other activities. It could be that it gets striped temporarily for different soccer games, things like that. So we want these things to be usable in lots of different ways, right? That they're not just sitting there, not being used at all, except for, obviously people are going to use it for frisbee, et cetera. But there are ways that we did lay out actually a lot of different fields to show that expandability, if so to speak. And then the other is that circle or that ellipse comes out and engages the lake. So having a deck that floats out over the lake not only is going to be breathtaking and great to be there, but it also is helping these little fish guys down below in the shade underneath that deck, right? So we're trying to find ways not only of creating habitat, like Jessica said, that is right along the edge, but creating habitat that's underneath things that creates those shade zones. It's going to start to diversify that so those fish will be happier. So then we're moving, there's the Great Lawn again. So now, this is wrong. Womp womp. That's here. So here's a big idea. What if this pavilion that we're in goes to the lake, and it's right on the lake, and it becomes a place for weddings, quinceañeras, for private events, office events. And so we're talking about an idea of pushing this pavilion, a new design for a pavilion, which you will also get to vote on over here, to the edge. And in this strategy, we're putting on, quote, an island, because there isn't an island over here. One of the ideas that we had with the circulation systems that Jessica was talking about, where we're moving water with pumping through these wetlands. We're adding a 3rd one. So there was one on the bottom and one up there around the Fisherman's Island. We're doing that here as well. And that becomes this really great dramatic bridge that'll take you over to that island with a future bridge that'll cross the lake, which would be really fabulous. Right now the lake is quite large and it takes a long time to get around. And it would be nice to get a midpoint in there to cross that. And so that's part of our work, is to design the concept for this bridge, but it's not in this current bond cycle, but it may come forward. So again, the idea that those roads are these drop-off zones for people, so you can drop off fishing gear, you drop off picnic gear, or whatever, and then go and park, is what we wanted to do through these 3 points along the roadway, and then load up a lot of accessible, ADA parking, et cetera, that would be close as possible to all of the different programming along the edge. And there's that event lawn, and that's one of the best views. Like, it really is fabulous looking across to the mountains in Juarez, and it's very naturalized because you're looking at the golf course and sort of more natural scenery there. Great backdrop for this. Oh, and the picnic shelters, yes. So all of these zones throughout, we have these places where we're concentrating new picnic shelters. Right now, there's a lot of sort of old shelters that are in disrepair, et cetera. So Exego is designing new picnic structures that are going to be placed around specific areas, but also loosely along the lake still, right? So people will still have access to shade all around the lake, but there are some concentrated areas where they make sense, like near the future splash pad, near the Great Lawn, near this pavilion, et cetera.
So one of the things we would love to hear from the community is whether you would like a new consolidated building where we are proposing a sort of a multi-purpose building where we could have a proper visitor center, where you might potentially have a small retail area and exhibit space, potentially sharing some of the history of Ascarate Park. We would have, as kind of mentioned, an event space that would be at least the same capacity or more, budget permitting. That you could, have weddings, corporate events, et cetera. It would help generate a lot more revenue as well for the county for future projects. And then, of course, restrooms and a training classroom for, where's my fisherman's group? Yes. So a training classroom with proper fishing storage, and then, have these wonderful spaces you can spill out onto and take the children out and have their wonderful fishing experience. And so again, we want to hear from you whether you would like this amenity or we would like to stick to what we have. And if you would like it, we are proposing 2 concepts that you can vote on. The first is, they're very similar concepts. It's one building, kind of 2 structures separated by a common roof, where, we envision you coming to have your lunch there or cycling through that boardwalk bridge across to the other side of the lake. And so really in plan, they're very similar buildings. It's just in their expression where they vary a little bit. This is a little bit more angular. And this would be more of a metal building versus more masonry and this kind of simpler volume that sits in the landscape. The sizes, the square footage?
This is the only slide that shows like the 3 sizes.
Oh, the picnic areas.
Oh.
Yeah, so we're going to be showing you, we're going to ask you what size of picnic shelter you prefer. So we have small, medium, large, and you'll see the capacity for each. So we're asking you, we're going to do the picnic shelters regardless, but we want to know if you want more small shelters or more medium size or more, kind of big shelters that you can host large events. And then we're going to be also giving you a couple of options of concepts so you can tell us which you like better. And all of this feedback, we're going to take it with us, and then we're going to continue to develop design. So none of them are final, they're just ideas for now.
Okay, so now we're moving to the right spot on the Fisherman's Island. And I think this is really turning out to be quite special. Right now, the existing bridge over, it's essentially just a dirt island. And so we really want to bring it to life, and we see a lot of different programming that happens here. And so first, as Jessica was talking about earlier, this bend around the lake is one of those places where we want to create that flow-through system, where the water is moving and aerating through these wetlands, and expand this area as a wetland zone. So anything that's this color we're kind of seeing as a wetland zone. But then we've also created these pocket fishing coves in here so that they're adjoining the wetlands, but you can still cast a line in there and not get caught. And you're getting these more diverse kinds of areas in the water bodies. The other thing is we've created an edge pavilion here, and we're seeing this as also a place for gathering for classes, for camps. I know that there's also a camp kind of desire to do campsites. So we see this island as kind of becoming the campground for event days like that kind of thing that will happen. And what else? And then we have another small lawn over here for play. There's a deck that sits out here. We could imagine this as being like a place for a communal camp group to come in, hang out under the pavilion, build a fire, cook some s'mores, that kind of thing. So. Oh, RV.
Just on the other side.
That's right. Yeah, so in the larger parking area next to the aquatic center, we were talking about doing some improvements to the parking lot and also creating some RV hookups so that when those events happen that you might have an RV day, you can bring those in and park those up and get them set up. And so then this moves us, this did not get updated, down here, which is towards the end. And this is where the duck pond is right now. It takes up all of this and all the way down. And so this is where we're seeing like, we could really diversify some amazing program for the future of the park here. One of them, a skate park. I mean, kids love them. They really bring a lot of diverse user groups. And then pump tracks. They're super popular. We designed one actually in El Paso at Cimarron Canyon Park in the development on the west side. There's a small pump track over there. And so those are really being popular. And so we see that as a kind of cool, active, teen level biking play skate area. The inclusive playground exists that was built recently. It feels like a little bit of an island, right? It's kind of out there in the middle of nowhere by itself. And so we wanted to double down on that and really expand that as a larger play zone. And that's where we're wanting to push for more nature play, more integrated play that's going to be more about topography and boulders, and logs, and those kinds of things. So we've got a proposed like birthday shade pavilion between the inclusive play and this nature play area. So parents can come, have a birthday party, they could be playing on both sides of this thing, more equipment, more parkour and other things like that in the inclusive play, or they can have younger kids maybe playing in the nature play area. So we wanted to make it a more active play zone on that side. And then of course all along the perimeter is still more picnic areas, more shelters that are along the lake, as mentioned. And a lot of this trail picks up on the existing trail. So we're just improving it, expanding it, but some of those alignments are still part of the same trail system. And then a few more food trucks might park down here. And then of course access to the baseball fields is also very close by, so people can amply park anywhere along that road. So we've improved a lot of the parking that would happen along that long perimeter road itself. And then that last piece, which I don't think we have an image of, we can zoom into that. We do have that, that's right, okay, yeah. Do you want to say anything else here about your
And then these are
shelters?
the
Yeah.
shelters that I mentioned, where one is a bit more angular versus some that are placed on more organic shapes. And so we'll get to see those on voting board. I think we can go to the next.
And those two have like sidewalls to help with wind, because we know how wind is in this place. Grills. So that, those are things that we're taking into consideration.
I have a fun fact.
Fun fact from
Okay,
Caitlin.
Lennon would like to share a fun fact.
Yeah, so,
I was just wanting to share with you guys that one of the reasons that the skate park is actually located where it is because we know that the duck pond has a lot of nostalgic value. And so those islands that you see in the potential future skate park. One of them is the existing island, and so we want to make sure that we're, you know, even if we're making a big change, that we also are acknowledging the value that it has right now and keeping those memories alive for you guys.
Thank you, Katie, that's great. Next slide. So then we're going down to the very bottom, and this is where we are, again, this is future, but it's starting to show you what we can do. We put a couple of basketball courts, that's a U12 soccer field in there. We did, so the road loops, right, to get it back, going back up to the north. But if there's an event, you can have two exits. We're talking about that other entrance or exit that can go along the south edge of the golf course. So there can be some relief in those high traffic events to get traffic out the other side. Yeah, pickleball, lots of pickleball. Who's a pickleballer here? Just one. Okay. Seems like it's gotten so crazy and popular. I'm a tennis guy, so I don't talk about pickleball. So what else do we need to say about this? So this again is just showing you kind of what the scale of that what the existing duck pond is and what some of these things can become. Really starts to show a diversity of activities, park programming that can really support a lot of different users.
And we want to propose as well restroom amenities. So these are a couple of concepts again. Disregard the quantity. The quantity will work out as the design progresses. But we would like to have obviously some drinking fountains, maybe communal sinks, and then some individual bathrooms as well. And just the differences in roof shapes, very durable materials, very low maintenance is what we're aiming for here, but to have some quality restrooms.
So this is just reiterating the bond, calling the bond and beyond. So this is the big picture. This is what we, some of this is existing, but what we believe we can capture in this first bond cycle to get, I think, a really large component, right, of this, and especially, this zone in here can really get developed. But the whole multimodal trail around the pond, that's happening. So that's going to be a big change. And I think that's it. Last slide is just what this might look like in the future. There are two QR codes that you can hold your phone up to, and it's going to take you to the survey site, like the first public meeting. So you can use that to get in the survey, and you're going to see a series of questions, things like that, that you can answer to give us some additional feedback. But we also, of course, welcoming feedback live and in the flesh.
And if you're not going to do this right this minute, we can walk you through. The QR codes are also on the board, so that if you have questions, you can help answer them before you vote or make a decision. And there's a number of us here who can help answer any questions you might have, but we can also take questions.
And all the boards are flipped over now, so you'll see like those enlargement plans are all over there, and then some of the other boards related to the different renderings that you saw at the meeting are on that side.
And as a reminder, we do have the printed presentation that we can hand to you when you're ready.
There's a lot to digest. It's a big part, a lot of ideas. It's taken a long time for us to really get our head around it and to develop it the way we have. And so we're sharing a physical copy of all of this so that you can really look at it to whatever level you want to look at and study it a bit more. So but we thank you for your support, for coming here. Thank El Paso County for making this come to life. This is a really significant investment in El Paso. This is your central park. So we're really happy to be on board to really make it the greatest we can.
One question. Yeah.
Sure, Ken?
Yeah.
This is really making progress. I see that there's a lot of attention to the fisher people and sports, and I don't see all that much going on for wildlife people or birders in particular. I'm very concerned about that multi-mode trail, which is not going to be conducive at all to bird watching. And I just wondered if there was a way to make this even a small trail that would wander through the wetlands on a natural surface that people would not want to take.
Great feedback.
Because there's, the birders, wildlife people are not going to want to walk down that 14-foot multi-use trail.
Yes, yes,
And,
yeah.
and we need something for the wildlife people.
Absolutely. And one of the things I will say is that the multimodal trail does not just stay right at the perimeter of the lake everywhere. It pushes out and away, so like up here, for example, it really pushes away, and that's where these smaller trail systems can start to happen that aren't on the busy, active bicycle runner trail. And so it, it comes around here, goes all the way around the perimeter there, goes over here. This is tight over here. We couldn't do much on this because that's golf property, so we had to stay over there. It pushes away from the lake there. There's another moment. Pushes away from the lake here, more moments. But yes, I think those are really important. That's great feedback. And we can definitely incorporate something like that where it's kind of more quiet, secluded. For sure, right? Which will be great. Thank you. Are you controlling? Okay, she's controlling.
I was just wondering if you considered a separate pedestrian entrance, like a neighborhood connector. There used to be one on
Yes.
Ben Swain and Arrow, and
Yes.
it was shut down before my time, I don't know why. But that would be really nice. I do represent the neighborhood that is abutting the Ascarate Park.
Here?
Yes.
Yeah. So El Paso County might want to speak to this because we don't know enough about it. We have it in there as a future connector, and in fact, our little road here and that sidewalk system is pretty close to where that connection was. But let Lydia talk
I
about
was
it.
just gonna say, Tim, do you have history on that connection? The history for the connection of the trail to the community? Okay. I know that there was somebody from our team that had some history, but I guess it is something that the county is looking into. It's not part of this bond, but the trail itself, from the side of the park, we're planning to have a connection to that. The connection from the community to the park is a little bit more complex because we have to deal with obviously the drain, and then on the other side is the city of El Paso. But that is something that came up in our last meeting, and we're definitely looking into it.
Yeah. We think it's important. We do think it would be a great connector to get people back into the park from this neighborhood. Because there's only, it's sort of bottleneck. It's kind of a moat, right? And quite literally there's a moat around it. And so I think it had something to do with maybe the crossing, like infrastructurally was old or something and it was not safe. I don't know. That's what I remember hearing maybe, but I have no idea. So, but a plan for it would be great. And we're going to connect at least that future trail. Him first, I think, yes.
You just say no?
It sure is.
I've got a couple of questions here. First of all, since you're going to be redesigning the roads and the way it goes around, is it going to be 2-lane roads all the way around rather than one way and nobody knows?
Correct.
4 lanes?
But in this road, we're actually going to make it wider so that it can handle event traffic.
Okay.
And can be more flexible that way. So we're looking at right now studying a 4-lane road that can migrate to 3 lanes in and 1 lane out during an event coming in, and 3 lanes out and 1 lane in leaving the concert. So you can really help push that traffic flow
Got it.
out.
My,
There's no event, you'll be doing lanes each way.
Okay. I'll give you my
Just to
question.
Yes,
reiterate what
exactly.
Pacelli said, it'll be two-way on
On a normal day.
2 lanes coming.
Yeah.
Okay, my other concern is, everything looks great, you know, and my only other concern is gonna be, parking. You say that there's what, 1,500, parking spaces, or will be? That doesn't seem like it's gonna be enough for everything going on in the park.
It's what we have right now, and our directive was to match that parking. We can add more, we can always add more, and we also discussed having some overflow lots, so that maybe they're not defined parking areas all the time, but we can actually expand and open those lots up. So right now, maybe we should go to the parking diagram.
So in the event that there's more than one event going on at the same time,
Yeah. So what we did do is we concentrated a whole bunch here in this event space, right? So 400, let's say average 2 people, right? That's only 800 people, right? If it's 4 people in a car, then that's 3,200, right?
and there's more people in the car.
But all of this, which we didn't number, that's all potential future parking. We can add more onto that side. We can always get more in there. And so I think that's, we need to look at that and see, you know, what we don't want to do is always design for the biggest event, because then you're going to have tons of empty parking spaces everywhere, 364 days a year. So we want to pull some of that back. And so, but in some of these areas, we could do some temporary lots that would be just overflow.
Now, my other question is, what about security? I know you have the sheriff's department here, but they're not here very often. Is there gonna be a permanent post or something?
We have not discussed that, but maybe El Paso County would like to,
Tim,
or
on
Tim
the
will talk
security.
about that.
I wanted to address a couple of things. As far as parking, I mean, one of the things we saw, you know, a couple of years back, we had the Brightside concert, large concert. So we saw a couple of things. We did open up the tax office parking lot, and then we saw a huge number of people coming in Uber who would turn off. And as far as security, I mean, that's our partnership with the sheriff's office, who have been very, very responsive, and I think Lupe Leda, our special events manager, can address that. We've had great success with our sheriff. Last 4th of July, one of our biggest events, they're out there in full force. We had absolutely no incidents. There was no, you know, incidents with alcohol, any fights, anything like that. And, you know, some of y'all might be as old as me, but I remember back in the day in Ascarate, that was a challenge. So we do see the visitors coming to the park are very respectful. We have very little, you know, in the way of any vandalism, including graffiti. So we're really proud of that. Yeah.
I didn't hear that.
One of the people are conducive that they had like some kind of permanent post, like this would be a beat, if you will. You know, you never know what's gonna happen. You never know, but at least there's one driving around every day, all day, you know.
Right.
My father started fishing here about 1950. Wow. Okay? I started fishing here, I don't know, 54, 55, 56. And I can remember that at that time we could access, as fishermen, 98% of the lake easily. We could drive up, walk up within 10, 15, 20 feet, 95% of the lake easily. My hope when I heard about the improvements for the park and the lake was that the lake, which is what this park has primarily and always been about, was going to get bigger. That access for fishermen was going to get greater, was But what I'm hearing is that there's some beautiful improvements being made to the park. And by the way, I like a lot of what the park side, the improvements are. But as far as the lake and fishing, you're giving us now 10 acres less. You're giving us, I think, maybe a third of the access. And even the access that you're giving us, we have to walk quite a bit to get to it. And in some cases, we have to compete with that 16-foot path that is like right here as we try to fish. So from a fisherman and a fishing standpoint, I'm sorry, I'm disappointed. I'm saddened because I thought there was probably a way to get all of what you have there and give us maybe 10 acres more lake. Maybe give us either greater access. Okay? So, again, beautiful things for the lake. The idea of working on the traffic and the flow, absolutely needed and welcome. But in terms of fishermen and fishing, I'm sorry, I just think you missed the point. Now, that said, assuming you're listening to me and others who I think would agree with me, how do you offset then the fact that you give me less lake and less access? Well, then you give me maybe more piers, fishing piers on the lake. Maybe more points where I can indeed drive up to pretty close to the lake. And if I'm handicapped, maybe just opening the car door, have the ability to immediately fish. Okay? So I think there's a way to offset that, but overall, from a fishing standpoint, I just end up being a little disappointed at the direction it's going.
Okay, I hear you, and I'd like to at least look at some of the edges of the lake itself. The lake itself hasn't really decreased. The reduction would be taking out the duck pond, right? Is that your contention as another place, or no?
No, far
Just
more
the main
than
lake.
that. Far more than that. The main lake, with the addition of the islands and the wetlands, is a great.
Yes.
You take about a 45 acre, 46 acre
Lake, and you reduce it to about 30, 34, 36, maybe 38 acres.
Okay, got it. So right now,
And
yeah.
by the way, your chart, as much as say that, because I glanced at your chart,
Right.
and the chart says it goes down to effectively 38 acres.
Of open water.
Correct, which, and
Right.
it's open water that I fish in.
Right.
Because I'm not fishing in the wetlands,
Right.
and I'm not fishing on the pads,
Right.
and I'm not fishing on top of the deck, and I'm not fishing on the island,
Jessica,
okay? So,
come.
So again, from a fishing standpoint, you're taking what this lake and park has been all about, and you're actually taking some of it away from us. And that just disappoints me. And I'm saddened by it because I think there's a way to have done this and actually increased the size of the lake, and yet all the amenities that we talk about would have still been there. And I'm just disappointed, almost thought to go that direction versus the direction that you went in.
Right.
You follow what I'm saying?
I do. I totally follow what you're saying. What I would say is that there's a lot of competing factors, and Jessica can speak to a lot of this better than I can, because she's a biologist. But a lot of this is actually making the lake better in quality and the ability to have fish habitat, right? That actually can spawn and not be dropped in, and restocked all the time, right? We're trying to create a place for them to live and thrive. The other is that we're creating edges that are not all hard by just walls everywhere, right? There's a lot of walls that have defined this lake. And so we want, yeah, that's it. And so we are, like we said for this, we've expanded this piece, and yeah, you can't fish over that, right? I mean, I guess you could if it's very narrow, if it's a narrow wetland, but if it's wide, you can't be casting lines over it. And so we have to have those, right? They have to be in there, and it starts to create a different dynamic for the edge of the pond itself, the park itself, the lake itself. And it also is a place where people get to enjoy it or watch and see those beautiful things as well. But there are lots of places that we can do some of the things that you're saying. And I think one of them is we did actually start to develop the idea of a deck that could come out into the lake. We have more ability to get into the middle of it. The other is in the future, when this bridge goes across, we created a lot of habitat, or bridges over that habitat that you could fish off of. But that other area becomes a new place where you wouldn't have access to fish normally, right? You can only fish on the perimeter right now. In the future, when this bridge goes across, you'll be able to fish here, here. And then if we do some more of those docks, we could get even more access out there. We did keep the ones that exist up there and over here, so those have not been touched. So those stay in place.
Hello? Hello? Yeah, just one last thing before, I apologize. Go to the park. So we hear you what you're saying about being able to drive to the lake or an ADA person. We can achieve that here from this parking lot, which is right now where you can at this moment. So we can modify, and there is an existing pier, and we can do that so that we can address the issue of an ADA person being able to run out to the lake. So we hear you, we understand what you're saying, and we'll try to address your concerns and issues, and we hopefully will be able to satisfy.
I just.
Not everything, at least, because a lot of it is about the water quality, and for that we need the wetlands.
Okay, one question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Question.
Sure.
Before you start spending money on doing all this, doing all that, and creating all this, spend the money in the lake. Drench it, put a new liner, fix whatever leaks you gotta fix. That way we, as fishermen, will come and be able to fish instead of smelling this water like rotten eggs, you know? And sometimes the fish don't even bite. This man here said they had a budget, 3 budgets in a matter of fact, and nothing's been done to the lake. All this is nothing but talk, no action. Your money is spent somewhere else instead in the lake. You want people to come to the lake, fix it, clean it, man-made lake. Mother Nature doesn't take care of still water. Man needs to, instead of spending $86,000 on a boat that's not even used, and another I don't know how many $1,000s on another boat, and it's just sitting there. Open your eyes, people. Fix your lake first. New Mexico fixed their pond lake, and they spent $1.3 million. Why can't we?
Well,
3 budgets, guys. Where are they?
We have $6 million to invest in cleaning.
Then spend it, drench it, clean it.
We're working on it.
That's what you've been saying since you've been a commissioner. Yes, you have. Because there's no action, guy. You lost.
okay, if we may interject.
Let's hope the other commissioner does something right for the lake. Because you haven't.
If we can,
The $6 million.
The water's been like that for out 80 years.
The $6 million for the lake.
TV saying that lake has not been drenched in 80 years.
So the $6 million for the lake is not part of the bond project, right? So that's a different project that we're working on. It's taken some time.
How much time do you need?
Well, so we didn't get the funding for that until 2023. Okay, so it has, so 2023. Right. So there's a governmental process, a purchasing process that you have to go through to be able to study the lake, to be able to understand what actually it is we need. We found out that the liner is fine. There's not major leakage in the liner. We don't need to dredge the lake. If we dredge the lake, it would cost upwards of $20 million, which we don't have. We would have to go out to the taxpayers. We don't have the $20 million. We have $6 million. And
This is the main priority
I understand your frustration, I understand your frustration.
Frustration is that you just talk no action.
Well, this right here is part of the action. This right here is part of the action. This is what it takes because
Next 10 years, and by that time, I'm already
this,
gone, guys.
well, this project is set to be complete by 2029.
Instead of completing that project, complete the lake first, start with the lake.
So the bond money that was authorized by the voters has to be spent on what was on the bond, what was on the language on the ballot. So this is what we're talking about here. The other part of the money for the cleaning of the lake is another pot of money that we borrowed back in 2023. Again, the process, we're in the process of making sure that project comes to fruition. It's going to happen soon.
Okay, so if we can maintain respectful dialogue, that would be really helpful to this process. I think it's important to understand that the lake is a very complex piece of this project. Okay, so there are several competing factors, as Kenneth said. There is $6 million that is going to be invested in the lake part of this project. We have to understand that there are several things that we're still researching and studying and learning. One of the big things is the wells. We know that the wells are relatively old. We understand that they actually are in great need of repair. And so a lot of that money, that $6 million, will go into repairing those wells because some of the reporting that we've been given based on an old report doesn't quite match empirical data, what we're seeing in the lake. So how the lake is behaving and the numbers that were given to us we're not exactly sure that they're correct. So we're actively working to, as Jessica mentioned, we're doing additional borings, we're doing additional water quality testing. The county is working to install flow meters on those wells so we can get more accurate information as to how much water is actually coming out of those wells. And so a great part of that budget is going to go into repairing those wells. The goal here is fishing, yes, in part. We want to give you better quality fishing, Tom. We don't want to take the fishing away. We don't want to make it less accessible. We want to give you better fishing opportunities. And what part of that is improving the habitat for those fish so that we're not just offering fish constantly from elsewhere, but so that we're giving them opportunities to breed and spawn here naturally so that your fishing experience is better. And we're not reducing the size of the lake. We promise to look very carefully at the accessibility, making sure that people with other abilities have good access to the lake, and that's something we can promise and do. But if we need to continue conversations on the lake, we're happy to continue to do that. It's a really big, complex issue, and we're doing a lot of analysis, and the information is all kind of coming in as we're working through some of these ideas. Jessica, do you want to add anything about?
I think we might want to move on and have a smaller group.
Right.
Yes, just 3 main points of concern. The inactive part of the park, according to your diagram, is still pretty much inactive. 365 days of the year. In other words, it didn't change much.
The inactive part?
Yes. And another thing, I come to the lake for walking, and I've turned around many times because there's events going on, and there is no place, for example, to park when I just want to walk and not come to an event. I've come to the Playa Drain Walk, and everything is closed and there's nowhere to park.
Inside the park?
Inside, anywhere, even the county office parking lot is closed. I also know that if you are going to maintain the 1,500 count parking spaces, that is all concentrated in one road, that's not a good idea for anybody. That'll keep me away even further on the days of the events.
Well, we have the same amount of parking, but more distributed, in fact, as opposed to more concentrated. And the access road is going to be wider and will move cars faster through
main frustration that that man has, and this man is like me, is that Ascarate Park has always been very simple for us. We get in our cars, we come, we park, we do what we need to do, and then we pack up and go. I don't want to come with my grandkids and have to walk half mile before I get to where I want to get.
You can walk 5, no, parking here, 5 minutes. And you can even park right here.
I think that it's a good idea for the fishermen and myself and my grandkids or myself walking, the people who come for the jogging, bicycling, the people who come to do training for the academies, whatever, that we have to have some kind of access on the other side as well.
On the other side of the lake?
Yes, some kind of access with parking also, so if we want to get to that side, we don't have to park on this side.
Yeah, the lot here that's by the aquatic center, we're moving that. That's a large lot that needs improvement. It's just one large asphalt surface right now. That's getting improved. Since we've got additional parking that we put in front of that area, we've got parking on the Fisherman Island. So there are some all the street around. This one is over by the memorial, but also can access the parking for the sports and things like that.
Because I think, the sports things on the bottom, the way at the end is going to keep a lot of people out. If there's an event, people who come just to do tennis or whatever, they're going to turn around. They're going to say too many people, too much traffic, too much.
I think one of the important things to note is the bigger events are at night. So those are different hours for most
Well, but they
families.
close during the day, like there's a lot of construction going on, or putting up, not closed, but they close some of the areas for the walking trails. I do know that for sure, especially during the Christmas stuff. They come in that way. It is closed, so I said, you know what, I'm going to Bassett or somewhere else for
I
that.
think it's important to know that these are amenities for the community as well, like the Christmas lights, the.
Oh, I understand that, and I've lived here 60 years.
But one thing I want to say as a mom with kids as well, I think one of the main things that we're trying to achieve is to give people, families with kids, with small children, a greater ability to move freely and safely along some of those areas without fighting with cars, which is really dangerous.
And I also like what she said about maybe we have habitat that's natural and native. And we need to plant a lot more shade trees. Those shade trees we all talked about at the Tech to Road this past weekend. About all those native trees and shrubs and everything that we need.
We agree with you. Yes, we agree. Any other comments?
Okay. Couple of things. On these proposed drawings that you have up there, there's a small building up on the top of the drawing, right off of the road. That is the Ascarate Fishing Club clubhouse, where we store all of our gear. The issues are going to be, if you do A1 before you do A2, that means you're going to tear down that fishing club before we have any place to put our equipment.
No, we won't do that.
Famous words.
We won't
I've
do
been
that.
in construction my whole life, and that's a famous sentence to say, and it never works that way.
Yeah.
Never.
Go ahead.
We understand your concern, and in the, we're planning on replacing your storage in the new facility if the community votes for the new facility. So that takes care of the being able to store what you have right now. Then the issue is the timing. So the project is going to take about 3 years to do. But we're going to be doing it in phases because we understand we cannot close the park. We want to build with it while it's an operation. So we're going to do this further down the road, a project schedule, what we have designed it in the construction, to see the phases to make sure that before we demolish your storage, that other storage is built, so that it doesn't happen, so that you don't run out and not have the facility. That's going to be the case with everything. And you're going to start probably seeing construction towards the end of this year, beginning of next year, maybe on the lake, the wells, or this and the other, but we understand the park's so big and it has to continue in operation. So it's going to be built in phases. And we will bring to you, in the community, those spaces so that you understand how this is going to be built and that the community understands, like for instance, from this month to this month, we cannot do this. From this month to that month, we're going to be doing this. One of the things that we did very early on is with Kim's team, and we went through the whole schedule of events that we have month by month to make sure that when we plan what we plan, we address building and not disturbing a lot of those activities when we're building it. That's the reason why we're going to be doing it in phases. So that's the plan right now, and we were going to come back to you and present that schedule so that people understand, okay, what's next, and that's going to be throughout the construction. We will be informing you all the things. So to answer your question, that shelter, if they choose to do this new facility, that's going to be replaced, but it's not going to be replaced until the new one is built. Yes.
Oh, sorry to interrupt you guys. Just had a small input. I'm 28 years of age. I've been fishing this lake about 18 years. I see you guys the playground for quite a bit. I see you guys work on some of the areas of the park. But I mean, as in the fishing, for the fishing, it's diminishing. Little by little, I get the guys' disappointment area. About for years and like it's obstructed. You can't get there to where you want to fish. Like half of the lake, it's closed. We don't even have access. It says it's about 44.2 acres of lake, right? We don't have access to the golf course. And for the duck hunt is low condition, no pumps. Like it's dying out. I don't know. I mean, my suggestion was maybe connect the dog pond with the rear side of the golf course lake and maybe create whatever you guys had intended around, and it will give you guys even more space and more access to all of us. I mean, it's a great park, you know. I would suggest we focus, like the man said, on this main park. We've done so many things all around in El Paso. But this is like one of our biggest attractions. If you were to think about it, we have nothing to look for here in El Paso. People from out of town want to come drive and, hey, what's the outdoors activities? I see you guys have